Israel should make the Gaza Strip a parking lot by this time next week. Destroy the whole thing. And anybody that's going to support this Hamas nonsense. What they ought to do is evacuate up there on the hill and get a great big missile and blow that wicked Dome of the Rock plumb off of the spot where it's standing right now, so we can get that third temple rebuilt and usher in the coming of Jesus. That video of that woman that survived the Holocaust in a wheelchair, they snatched her up. Kidnapped a Holocaust survivor.
Hey, what's up? This is a very important topic to be expounding because, you know, we're about to get sucked into a war in the Middle East, and it's a war we can't win. And, you know, it might just get us all killed. Every one of us. And our leaders will be slithering into it with popular support because of this theological doctrine, Christian Zionism, dispensationalism, whatever you want to call it. And, well, anyway, since Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens have been talking about it, I thought that I'd redo this video from an earlier iteration and maybe expand on it a little bit, and also maybe give a lot more detail than some of the other influencers have. I'm going to talk about the how and why Christian Zionism began, how it was instilled into Protestant evangelicalism here in the United States, and how it was used politically by the Anglo-American Empire. Because, folks, that's why it was created. It was created to achieve political goals by the Anglo-American Empire. It's a psyop, literally. So I want to talk about that. So here goes. Okay, so our adventure begins with a really creepy guy named John Darby. He was the guy. He alone was the sui generis of the whole damn thing. And he's motivated Christians to slavishly kiss Israel's collective ass for quite some time. Put succinctly, it states that the second coming of Christ can't occur unless the Jews are in Palestine and a third temple's built. That's Christian Zionism in a nutshell. I say the third temple since the first one was destroyed by the Babylonians, I think, like 535, something like that. And the second one was destroyed by the Romans in 70 A.D. Anyway, his ideas were used by a guy they called Lord Shaftesbury. I don't remember. I didn't take down what his real first name was, but they called him Lord Shaftesbury. And the British East India Company, controlled by the Jewish Rothschild family. And, you know, I couldn't quite determine whether they seized upon his ideas or whether they told him to come up with them. But nonetheless, they took the ball and ran with them. Now, it would be a genetic fallacy to reject this guy's ideas based on his background, you know, because that by itself doesn't mean that he's wrong about anything. Just because he's creepy. Does it? Or does it? I don't know. But I'm still going to talk about him because it's kind of dark. Now, he owned this castle called Leap Castle in Ireland, spelled L-E-A-P, and it's renowned as being the most haunted castle in Ireland. Probably one of the most haunted castles anywhere. My God, you know, I don't necessarily believe in ghosts, but there have been so many murders in that goddamn place. You wouldn't believe it, man. Fewer than 100 years ago, they found an oubliette with about 30 or 40 bodies in it. I mean, you know, and that's not necessarily Darby's fault. I mean, the castle's hundreds and hundreds of years old. But the kicker is, though, they found a watch among the bones that dated to the time that Darby was living in the castle. And then on top of that, his daughter-in-law did some really heavy-duty occult rituals there in that castle too, which by itself, I mean, that doesn't mean anything. Might have just been messing around with the Ouija board. All the sources say that it was some really heavy-duty ceremony, but, I don't know. None of that by itself really means that much until you consider that one of this guy's parishioners in this little church he had was none other than Aleister Crowley. My God. If you don't know who that motherfucker was, just look him up. My God. So I think that where there's smoke, there's fire anyway, from my perspective. So now the big wigs got their ammunition. They're locked and loaded. They're ready, but they can't really do anything with the ammunition unless they get a gun to shoot it with. Old Lord Shaftesbury and a whole bunch, they got to have a mouthpiece. They got to have a weapon. So now Cyrus Schofield walks on stage, right on cue. Now, if you're an evangelical Protestant, you'll know who this guy is. I mean, his name is ubiquitous in the Baptist Church. He came up with the Schofield Reference Bible, which is a Bible that has a concordance built right into it. And this Bible, this Schofield Reference Bible, in essence, is just a propaganda machine for Christian Zionism. Seriously, if this thing had speakers and you could wind it up and listen, and it would just say Christian Zionism, Christian Zionism, Christian Zionism. I used to own one, hell. And it's almost a blasphemy in the Baptist Church if you don't even at least know about the thing. But nobody knows who this guy is, or who he was, or where he came from. And the real kicker is no one really knows. Schofield's a shady character, to say the least, and we're going to go over a little bit. He lied all his life about serving in the Confederate Army. He said he served in the Army in Northern Virginia under old Boss Robert himself, and he didn't. He never attended any university of any kind, and yet he claimed to be a lawyer, a minister, and he even awarded himself a theological doctorate degree. He abandoned his family, for decades and decades. He never supported his wife or his children, 2 daughters. And there was this shadowy clique of investors, though, that they got him admitted to the bar as a lawyer, even though he knew nothing about law. And then they appointed him a U.S. District Attorney, for crying out loud. But that only lasted for 6 months because he got caught blackmailing the railroad companies trying to get a bunch of money out of him, which was probably the reason why he was put in there in the first place. But anyway, he got dismissed from his post as a district attorney. Now, this clique was called the Secret Six. And they show up in history at different times. Well, let's move on and we'll talk about them. Okay, so here are the Secret Six right here. I've written their names, but I'm not gonna read them. If you want to know, just look them up. These guys, they were also the guys who financed John Brown, especially his raid on Harper's Ferry to try to start a slave revolt. They were behind that financially. But anyway, they introduced him to Samuel Untermyer, who was a big shot Jewish lawyer in New York. He's very well known. He was very well known for the day, and he has a park named after him there in New York. And, he was a bigwig. And then Untermyer got him into the Lotus Club, which is a club for intellectuals and literary people, and they artists, and they all go there and they hang out and they network. It's there in New York. And at the club, he met Samuel Gompers, Fiorello LaGuardia, Abraham Strauss, Bernard Baruch, and Jacob Schiff. These are some Once again, these are some really big shot Zionists in New York there, and he met them there at the Lotus Club, and they had a plan for him. They, along with a guy named Lyman Stewart, an oil guy from the West Coast, they financed the dissemination of his Bible. Now, I don't know whether he wrote it after he met them or before he met them, but they financed the dissemination of his Bible and concordance, along with Christian Zionist propaganda throughout the U.S., using this con man as a mouthpiece, a front to introduce Christian Zionism in the United States. So now they have the CZ mind virus inserted into the brains of the evangelical community in the United States, and it thereby assured their unquestioning support for Israel and all things Jewish from then up to today. But I also said the whole thing would lead up to the 10th Crusade by proxy, and so now I'm going to show you really what I mean by that. First, let's talk about the original Crusades, what they were all about. They were all about establishing a foothold in Asia by which Europeans could open markets. Because spices were all the rage, and some other stuff too, silk and perfume and what have you, but spices was the big deal. See, nobles ate meat. The noble class ate meat. Vegetables were considered to be more or less peasant food. They ate almost entirely a diet of meat, and so, not having any refrigeration, the meat kind of got gamey, kind of got rotten. And they discovered that the spices would cover up the nasty taste. So spices were all the rage, and so they wanted to go establish a foothold in Asia so they could open up markets and control them. And then there was also perfume, because they were like some stinky people. Give you an illustration, they changed a baby's diapers every several months. And I'm not kidding. Look it up. One of my degrees is in history, too, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. Anyway, on. Okay, flash forward about 1,000 years, and old Lord Shaftesbury here, you remember him, along with men like Lord Palmerston, David Lloyd George, Lord Balfour of the Balfour Declaration fame, and the British East India Company, controlled by Baron Rothschild, Jews, and the Jewish Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli. They wanted to put Jews in Palestine. I guess for some political reason they couldn't just do it outright with Christians, so they decided to settle Jews in Palestine for the same reasons as the Crusades, to establish a physical foothold in Asia and open markets. Now flash forward to today. Today, there's a proposed India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor coming from east to west, and it's slated to pass through Israel. And they're also planning on possibly building a canal from the Gulf of, I guess that's the Gulf of Aqaba, through the Negev, and to dump out into the Mediterranean. And of all places, it has to pass through Gaza. But the kicker is they can't do any of that as long as there's all kinds of political instability in the area. They can't put billions and billions of dollars into building a canal or establishing a trade corridor so long as there's going to be some crazy raghead running around out in the desert trying to blow them up with hand grenades and cut folks' heads off. But the long and the short of the whole thing is Christian Zionism has been used to establish United States support, unwavering United States support for the state of Israel, and it was done for the purpose of opening markets and establishing a foothold in Asia. And it is literally the 10th Crusade. So anyway, now you see how the Anglo-American Empire created Christian Zionism through a creepy preacher and a con man. And they've used it, they've injected it into the body politic of the United States and I guess the Western world to a lesser extent, kind of like a cancer virus that they injected, and it's metastasized all over the place, and you can't get rid of it. You just have to try to live with it, and then gradually, eventually, it finally going to kill you. And that is the real danger. This shit kills people. I don't give a damn whether you think that, you know, the Jews are the chosen people and, you know, rapture and pre-tribulation, blah, blah, blah. I don't care whether you believe that or not. But you're getting people killed. And you may just wind up getting us all killed. You know, like nuclear war. All because of your bullshit Schofield reference Bible. Think. Anyway, I don't know. I'm sorry to get so worked up. But anyway, if you like my video, like and subscribe. I try to do my best, and I try to present information that you don't really get other places. I sometimes have, I think, some unique insights on things. But anyway, oh, bye-bye.